Let's cut through the headlines and get to the real story. Because what's happening right now with Google, Kairos Power, and the Tennessee Valley Authority isn't just another tech energy partnership. It's the opening chapter of a new era where tech giants are effectively becoming their own utility companies. And it's all being brought into sharp focus by the construction of advanced generation 4 nuclear reactors in Tennessee. Not for altruism, not for buzzwords, but because the future of computing, AI, and the grid depends on it. Here's the bottom line. Google doesn't just want power, it wants predictable, sovereign, ultra-low carbon power. The kind of power that isn't beholden to the weather, geopolitical shocks, fuel price spikes, or aging infrastructure. And that's exactly why you're seeing them team up with Kairos Power and TVA on Genevieve Nuclear, specifically the Advanced Fluoride Salt Reactor project slated for Oak Ridge. This isn't a tech company dipping its toe into energy. It's a strategic pivot into energy sovereignty. If you're thinking this sounds dramatic, let me reframe it for you. Tech companies used to treat power like a utility bill, necessary but not strategic. Today, power is arguably the most important competitive moat in tech. Without massive, reliable electricity, there's no cloud, no AI training, no data centers, and no edge computing expansion. It's that simple. Now let's unpack how this came together. Why Tennessee and why Gen 4 Nuclear? Because that's where the real revolution is happening. First, the players. Google, a $1 trillion+ company with some of the most power-hungry operations on the planet. AI training, data centers, global cloud infrastructure. Their hunger for electricity isn't hypothetical, it's existential. Kairos Power, a private nuclear company pioneering Generation 4 molten salt reactors, designed to be safer, smaller, cheaper, and more flexible than conventional nuclear. TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, one of the largest public power utilities in the U.S., with both the regulatory authority and the grid footprint to make large-scale power projects real. This isn't random. It is, in fact, a purposeful assemblage of capital, technology, and grid access that would have been nearly impossible just a few years ago. So let's zoom in on the key driver: predictable power demand at scale. Google's data centers already consume gigawatts of electricity annually. Every new AI model, every server expansion, every new region of service increases that demand. Historically, tech companies have relied on a mix of renewables plus grid power plus offset credits to claim carbon neutrality. But there are two huge problems with that model: intermittency and volatility. Solar and wind are fantastic, but they aren't reliable 24/7. When the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, there's still a grid that needs power, and that power comes from fossil peakers or unpredictable markets. Grid instability and rising prices. As demand spikes and climate events strain infrastructure, price volatility and blackouts are no longer theoretical. They're recurring features of the system. Google didn't build its empire on compromise. It built on predictability and control. And at scale, intermittent renewables can't deliver that without massively expensive batteries or backup fuel sources. That's where the nuclear pivot comes in. But not just any nuclear. Gen 3 advanced reactors represent a fundamental shift. Safer physics. Many Gen 3 designs, like Kairos' fluoride salt technology, are passively safe, meaning they can't melt down even if all controls fail. Lower cost trajectory. Unlike traditional reactors that take a decade or more to build, Gen 3 designs aim for modular, factory-built components that shorten construction timelines and reduce cost overruns. Load flexibility. These reactors aren't just baseload power. They can modulate output to match demand, critical for balancing large data center loads without straining the grid. Reduced waste and simpler operation. Advanced designs produce less long-lived waste, and can potentially use fuel more efficiently. In other words, Gen 4 nuclear is designed for the 21st century, not the 1950s. In Tennessee, there are at least 3 reasons that state became the focus. Historical nuclear ecosystem. Oak Ridge and the TVA region have decades of nuclear expertise, infrastructure, and regulatory familiarity. Grid access and scale. TVA's grid serves millions of customers across multiple states, giving Google a real pathway to interconnect at scale. Political and regulatory environment. Unlike some regions where nuclear expansion is politically fraught, Tennessee's institutions have shown willingness to innovate and partner with private industry. Now, let's address the unspoken truth. Tech companies building their own utility capacity isn't just smart, it's necessary. When AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud all deploy AI at massive scale, they aren't just data companies anymore. They are infrastructure companies that happen to operate algorithms. Let's take a moment to reflect on what that means for the future. AI training workloads are expected to double every few years. Exascale computing clusters require uninterrupted, huge power draws. If your power source falters, the computations fail. Time lost, money wasted. Try explaining that to shareholders or customers in regulated industries who depend on uptime. This has profound implications. The power sector can no longer think in siloed terms. Tech companies can't just outsource energy risk. They have to internalize it. Owning or directly securing generation capacity becomes a competitive moat. That's the core economics driving this deal. But here's where it gets even more strategic. Google isn't just buying electrons. They're buying influence over future grid architecture. Today's grid was designed for centralized power going to centralized loads. Tomorrow's grid needs to be distributed, flexible, and responsive to AI loads. Who better to help design and fund that future than the companies that will pay for it? Here's another critical angle. Carbon markets and corporate climate pledges. Renewable certificates and offsets have been a staple of corporate sustainability claims. But as scrutiny increases, both from regulators and the public, those strategies look less credible. Advanced nuclear offers a real, measurable, always-on zero-carbon source. Not certificates, not net zero, actual, verifiable carbon-free generation. So investors, regulators, and corporate sustainability officers are paying attention. Let's pause again and think about this from a competitive dynamics perspective. If Google cracks this model, secure, predictable, lower cost, zero carbon power tied directly to its compute footprint, what happens next? Microsoft might follow. AWS might double down on its own generation projects. Other tech giants start signing long-term PPAs with advanced reactors. Grid operators must rethink pricing and capacity planning. We're not talking about incremental shifts. We're talking about a tectonic realignment where power is no longer just a utility cost. It's a strategic asset class. Another engagement moment. Think about the geopolitical implications. Countries that can attract tech capital and build advanced nuclear capacity suddenly become more attractive destinations for future industries. It's no longer just about tax incentives and talent pools. It's about power sovereignty. So when you hear about Google building Gen 4 reactors in Tennessee, it's not a vanity project. It's a strategic necessity driven by demand patterns, competitive positioning, grid insecurity, and the undisputed fact that electricity is the bottleneck for future tech expansion. Let's be clear, this doesn't mean the grid is obsolete. Far from it, the grid remains the backbone of power delivery, but tech companies no longer see it as sufficient for their mission-critical workloads. They want a hybrid model, grid power plus direct generation plus advanced controls. They want resilience, they want predictability, they want influence. Which brings us to the institutional shift. Tech companies are no longer passive energy consumers. They are becoming energy architects. In practical terms, this means long-term power purchase agreements with next-gen reactors, shared investment vehicles between utilities and tech firms, direct funding of generation projects in exchange for preferred capacity, integration of advanced microgrid technologies, AI-driven grid optimization platforms. This changes the rules of the game for everyone, from utilities to regulators to investors. And it's precisely why Radiant Nuclear, Kairos, and other advanced reactor companies are suddenly attracting not just energy capital, but tech capital too. Because the companies with the appetite for data and compute scale also have the appetite to fund the infrastructure needed to support it. Let's bring this home with one last engagement instinct. Watch this space. Not in years, but in quarters. The companies securing energy sovereignty today are securing competitive advantage for the next decade. Gen4 Nuclear isn't just a technology bet, it's a strategic infrastructure bet. Google isn't just buying reactors, they're buying power independence, competitive edge, and future optionality. And as tech giants blur the lines between utilities and platforms, the world will start to look very different. Electron by electron, algorithm by algorithm. That's not future talk. That's happening now. And if you're paying attention, you're already witnessing the dawn of the next great industrial shift. Technology companies becoming their own utilities, powered by the most advanced nuclear systems ever built.